This tutorial will demonstrate how to access candidate scores. There's really two ways to get candidate scores, and there's really two reasons why you might use these different ways. First of all, if a candidate comes to you that is tested with another organization, the only way to get their score is to go into a candidate page where they can search for their individual records. If you do that, you will need the candidate to provide you with their candidate ID and their PIN number. If you have administered the test, you can certainly use the candidate ID and PIN to access the score report, but you could also log directly into Arkiv and you can access reports and pull up not just one candidate but all the candidates that might have tested within one day. Which system you use depends entirely on how many candidates you have and whether or not you have access to additional information about the candidate. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go to nccr.org, and below the location where I logged in as a user, as a place for a candidate ID and PIN, I'll enter the candidate ID and PIN of a candidate that recently tested, and then the system will return all testing results for that candidate. When that's returned, I can find the candidate score report and also a strength weakness or a training prescription report, which can be used to illustrate where the candidate needs additional work. I'll then also demonstrate how you might log in as an administrator to Arkiv and select other reports by entering certain search criteria, so you can pull back not only an individual candidate, but you can also pull back information about a lot of candidates as well as other summary reports for your organization. Returning again to the NCCR website under the Archive section, I'll come down here and I'll enter the candidate ID. And I'll enter the PIN number. And I'll press Get Score. Alright, you'll notice that this is today's date and I have a sample exam. I'll also see whether I passed the test and the result. The overall result for this particular one is that I have training that's recommended. I'll then print the score letter, and this opens up information about the candidate's testing results. And I see that the candidate did not meet the cut score on this particular area. Now I can also get a training prescription for this particular test by pressing this Get Training Prescription button once I've got the score report open. If you have a pop-up blocker, you might need to turn that off to get the training prescription. But this once again describes, and if you had multiple content areas, it would show in all the content areas which ones the candidate needed to do the most work on. Now, as an administrator, I can also log into Arkiv and get scores, and I will do that by clicking Administrator. I will go under Candidates, and I'll select Reports, Candidate Scores. I will select Mayberry West, and today's date, start and end date are already set, so I'll submit that. And the system returns also the same information. I can get the score report, I can get the training prescription. Another thing you might want to do, in addition to getting scores, is that you might want to get summaries. And so you can select Summary by Sponsor. You could certainly change the date range that you're looking for. I'll go back to 2011. I'll select the primary account and I'll include all sub-accounts here. And I'll submit. And it quickly generates for me a summary report of all the tests that have been administered for this organization and how the candidates have done. And this information can be copied and pasted by the user. Now the benefit, once again, of using the score report system is that you do not need to know the candidate's ID or PIN number in order to access the score result. If a candidate had typed in the wrong number, or anything like that, or they couldn't remember their PIN, you could still access the score results if you had administered the test to the candidate. There's also other reports that are available. Topic summary will give a summary of how the candidates have performed on specific tests in aggregate. So as a training administrator, you can determine which topics or which modules to do the most training on. So it can be very useful to you as an organization.